What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for September 11th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. Happy Hump Day. We're gearing up for the Eagles-Falcons next Monday night. We have some Phillies news, but first, some housekeeping notes. I'd be remiss if I did not mention that today is the 24th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. It's not necessarily something I always like to talk about. Still, to this day, brings up a ton of emotion and likely always will. So if you were impacted or affected by that, positive vibes, thoughts, and prayers out to you, to anybody who still has the emotional feelings that come up whenever you think about this day. Same thing, positive vibes, thoughts, and prayers out to you. However, I also would be remiss if I did not mention the ray of sunshine that happened on this day 9 years ago. Yes, my son Thatcher was born on this day 9 years ago. There's something in Philly sports history for you. But happy birthday to him. It's crazy to think that it's been 9 years. I still feel like I was laying with my head on a little hospital table while we were in the hospital for 2 nights as my wife was labor-induced. Ultimately came out Friday afternoon on September 11th. So happy birthday, pal. I love you. And crazy that it's been 9 years. Like, that's just insane. And truthfully, it's not a Tuesday. It's not a motivational day. But if you are a parent out there, you know no amount of preparation will ever prepare you for that moment when all of a sudden you hear a baby cry and you're like, oh, crap. And even more so that day driving home from the hospital, you're like, okay, there's no nurses here. What do we do now? And you just sit there and kind of, I think I drove like 20 miles per hour down 95 and 476 and then 76 to get home, just afraid that bumps and things were going to happen. So happy birthday, buddy. I love you. All right. In all of my being fired up about Bryce Harper yesterday, I completely forgot to recap the question of the day from the day before. On Monday, I asked if the Chip Kelly didn't get rid of Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy, would the Eagles still have won the Super Bowl? 56% of you agreed with me and said no. Again, I am not trying to de-villainize Chip Kelly, but some of those ridiculous moves, some of which we'll talk about later in the show that he made, did have a big impact on how he was able to do to put that Super Bowl team together. So thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. And then recapping yesterday's question, it was a very hot topic. It's almost as though somebody out there is listening and taking some ideas from me, which I like. But a lot of the talk radio shows were talking about whether or not Bryce should have been benched. 80% of you disagreed with me and said, no, he should not. And to his credit, I will admit that I was wrong. That's why Rob Thompson does his job. I do my job. Rob Thompson did not bench him, and it paid off in spades as Bryce Harper did go 4 for 5 with 3 doubles yesterday in a great feisty, I guess is a good word to put it, or a good way to put it, 9-4 win over the Rays. Ranger was not sharp, gave up a career-high 12 hits, but was able to get out of some jams. The bullpen was outstanding. I think one of the things that probably will get lost in all of the things that I'm going to mention that happened in the game yesterday, that's probably going to get overlooked, but was a key takeaway for me. Jose Alvarado looked pretty good last night. He looked kind of like how he was. So hopefully whatever he had going on family-wise, and he was able to get his mind cleared, and he'll be back, because if he can pitch the way we know he's capable of pitching, that's going to be huge for this team down the stretch. Scwarber set the Major League Baseball record with his 14th leadoff homer of this season. So hopefully this buries and puts to bed any debate on whether or not he should be the leadoff hitter or not. Best to ever do it from a home run standpoint. So there you go. He did leave the game with some elbow soreness from when he got on first. I forget whether he was walked or singled, but slid back into first and tweaked his elbow a little bit. all indications do seem like he might play today. There was no structural damage, so we'll kind of keep an eye on that. But it goes back, all of these weird, like, soft tissue, like, random injuries. Nothing even, like, remember the Eagles had it a few years ago where everybody was getting, like, a hamstring or some kind of weird injury, and they were questioning the trainers. All of these are just freak, weird things that have been happening. So hopefully Kyle will be okay. But they did show a lot of fight yesterday. On a night when, like I said, Ranger did not have it, they were able to keep battling. And I think, and it's probably going to be cliche, but I think when Nick Castellanos got hit and Bryce really stuck up for him, was what really out there before Nick was. It's something like that I think is going to galvanize this team. And it might be that thing that they needed, like, to reignite. Hey, we're in the middle of a pennant race right here. So I want to see how they come out today, especially with Zach Wheeler on the mound. But that was, I think, a key moment in that game. And again, I'm willing to admit I was wrong. I'm glad that Rob Thompson did not bench Bryce Harper. I think Bryce does hold himself accountable. So kudos for him for making up for the other night, which the other night, again, did not hurt him. I do think all of the criticism he received yesterday, 100% justified. I think if it was any other star athlete, whether it was Joe, Jalen, A.J. Brown, I mean, eventually Mishkov for the Flyers, I think it would have been justified. So he deserved every piece of criticism he got yesterday. But to his credit, he came out and certainly made up for it with 3 doubles and 4 hits in that game. And the game was fun again. It was very, very fun to watch that game yesterday. A weird moment happened. I wanted to mention this because I don't know how. I guess in Major League Baseball, the umpire is in play. And maybe I don't know the rules of the other sports, but I feel like if the ball in the NBA hits the referee, it's a dead ball. I feel as though if like you can't catch a pass that bounces off the referee's arm or shoulder in the NFL. So the fact that it hit the umpire, and I get baseball is a little bit different, and what a crappy, unfortunate bounce for Bryson, but a fortunate bounce for the Rays that it bounced right back to the first baseman. So if you know the rules better than me, in the NFL or NBA, would that I think in the NHL it just you play on. So maybe it's similar to that. It was an odd play that I don't think I've ever seen to that extent where the ball bounced directly back to the first baseman because Bryson ripped that ball too. But the Phils won, Mets lost, so they now have an 8-game lead over both the Mets and Atlanta. 7 games coming up against the Mets. We'll have more on that starting tomorrow and through the weekend. Going to have some fun with the Mutts this weekend. Milwaukee, they're still 3.5 games up on the 2nd seed and 1 game up on the Dodgers for the 1st overall seed. And again, I'm not too concerned which one of those spots they get. Obviously, with the 1st seed, you're going to have every single home game come through Citizens Bank Park, which is huge. So we'll take that. The magic number to win the division and clinch a playoff spot now is down to 10. The next 10 days are going to be critical. The Phillies can pretty much clinch everything if things sort of go to plan. But you have 7 games against the Mets. I mean, you still have one more. I'm sorry. Next 12 days. You still have one more against the Rays this afternoon. Let's go for the sweep. But then you got 7 games against the Mets and 3 against the Brewers. So we're really going to know what this team is going to look like heading into the playoffs. And I would love to clinch early and allow some guys to get a couple days off, set up the rotation, and get everything the way you want it heading into the playoffs. But they'll take on the Rays tonight with Zach Wheeler on the mound. All right, as we gear up for the Falcons, some things I'm looking for heading into this week. Obviously, they need to take care of the ball better. Everybody's been saying that. More on that in a minute. The pass rush. I mean, if Bryce Huff, are you still in Brazil? Did you take the wrong plane? I need to see something out of the pass rushers. The fact that one of your best pass rushers that wasn't a linebacker was Brandon Graham. That tells a lot. But all things considered, I will say, after watching all the Week 1 games, kind of watching highlights of different teams, the Eagles definitely look like one of the better teams. I think in the NFC, the Packers didn't look bad, but it's going to be tough without Jordan Love for a few weeks. The Niners look good. It's like a running back factory there. It doesn't matter who they plug in. They just seem to, it's Kyle Shanahan's offense, man. Like whoever they put in, that's one of the things they do well. So that they're going to be tough. And despite all the sloppiness, you need to clean that up, but I need them to be consistent in practice this week and really work, because the Falcons, while it's a 6.5-point spread and shouldn't be an issue for the Eagles to win this game, if you don't get a pass rush on Kirk Cousins and if you turn the ball over, you could be in trouble in this game. So definitely looking to clean it up. One last note on the Packers game, and this is why I love Brian Baldinger. He was looking at the film of the game, and that end zone interception that Jalen threw across his body, which we rightfully so blamed Jalen for. AJ actually slipped, and he was wide open. Still need to clean it up, but I think to me the takeaway was it wasn't the worst throw to make. I don't even know if it was a bad decision. The issue was, and this could be something that I don't know if you can fix, Jalen just didn't have the arm strength to get it there. So even with AJ slipping, and part of the reason he slipped was because it wasn't a good throw. I think it was the right read. I just don't know if Jalen has the physical capabilities of making that throw. So that's something to watch. Maybe he thought he did, but I just wanted to point that out because Brian Baldinger does a good job, and I saw some different things that he broke down some film, and I wanted to mention that. But it's all about cleaning it up for this Falcons game on Monday night. Nick Foles night, by the way, down at Lincoln Financial Field. All right. Today, we're going to go back to 2004. And on this day, in honor of the Phillies-Mets big series coming up this weekend, Phillies beat the Mets 11-9 in 13 innings. David Bell hit a 2-run shot in the top of the 13th to win it. Bell hit 2. Pat Burrell, Todd Pratt, and pinch hitter Ryan Howard on this day all hit home runs. Now, Todd Pratt's second inning home run set the team record of 186 home runs, originally set back in 1976. They ended that season hitting 215, which was the team record. Currently, the team record is 224, which was set in 2009. And I completely forgot how good that 2009 team was with Banez and Howard and Utley, Jason Worth. That was just a stacked team. But last year's team almost set that record with 220. And if you are keeping score at home with the 3 home runs hit yesterday, the Phillies now have 176 on the season, 2 by Trea yesterday and 1 by Scwarber. But back to this day in 2004, Phillies used 10 pitchers, which was a team record. The Mets used 8 pitchers that day, and that 18 tied a Major League record, which now stands at 24, set by the Giants, Red Sox back in 2019. But on this day, back in 2004, Phillies beat the Mets 11-9 in 13 innings. They set a team record, or then team record, for home runs in a season, and also tied a Major League Baseball record with 18 combined pitchers used by the Phillies and the Mets. The team record they set as well with 10 pitchers. So it was a day of records back in 2004 for the Phils. Too bad the team just finished outside of the playoffs, though. All right, continuing our Philly Sports Villains. These are guys with Philly sports ties that have become villains in their career, and pretty much, for the most part, a lot of these guys still are. Now, today's villain is tied to Monday's villain, Chip Kelly, and that is Demarco Murray. And if you remember that whole story, they were going after Frank Gore at first, and Frank Gore backed out at the last second. I think he ended up going to Indianapolis. So then Chip Kelly signed Ryan Matthews and then still signed Demarco Murray to a 5-year, $42 million contract. This was back in 2015. And not to use the word I used earlier, de-villainize Demarco Murray, he was in a no-win situation. First and foremost, he was coming off a ridiculous season in 2014, led the league in carries with 392, ran for over 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns, also added, I think, like 45 receptions or some crazy number like that. No way he could duplicate what he did the year before. So he had that going against him, and the fact that he was replacing LeSean McCoy, who nobody in the fan base wanted out of Philly to begin with. So DeMarco already had 2 strikes against him coming in because, like I said, there's no way he was going to duplicate that 2014 season he had, and certainly not going to replace a legend and a fan favorite like LeSean McCoy. And then it just went downhill from there. He already had 2 strikes going into it. First game, he had 8 rushes for 9 yards. Ended the season with 193 yards for 702, or 193 carries for 702 yards. Most of that is on Chip, just the way he used him. But DeMarco Murray certainly didn't help himself. He was, quote unquote, injured in training camp. There was a lot of speculation and questions about whether or not he was really injured. He complained about not getting touches. There's a story that, forget what away game it was, but he flew home sitting next to Jeffrey Lurie and complained about Chip Kelly. Some of his character was questioned. He was more of a me guy than a team guy. Just was a horrific season for DeMarco Murray. And like I said, he certainly did not help himself out whatsoever. Ended up being traded that offseason, and many consider it the worst free agent contract in NFL history, not just Eagles team history. And of course, to be the cherry on top of the sundae, Chip Kelly was fired before the last game of the season. DeMarco's first carry under interim coach Pat Shurmur, a 54-yard touchdown run. So that's probably more of an indictment on Chip Kelly than DeMarco Murray. But, of course, last game of the season, team's already out of it. First play, DeMarco gets his 54-yard touchdown. So today's Philly Sports Villain is DeMarco Murray, very, very closely tied at the hip with Chip Kelly. Both of these guys, no. I have zero love for either one of these guys. And DeMarco Murray, we talked yesterday about Al Horford being a spy. I would not be in the least bit surprised if Jerry Jones gave him a check off the record or a bag full of cash with a $sign on it and said, thank you for screwing up the Eagles this season. But today's Philly Sports Villain is DeMarco Murray. And then it leads to the question of the day, because I mentioned that the contract was one of the worst free agent contracts in NFL history. But was DeMarco Murray the worst free agent that the Eagles signed? Certainly could make the argument. So the 4 choices for today: Demetrius Bell, Nnamdi Asomugha, DeMarco Murray, or Byron Maxwell. Who is the worst free agent contract or worst free agent that the Eagles have signed? I mean, you can go back even further if you want to go to like a guy like Tim Harris, Stacey Andrews. There's a litany of people that you could choose for this, but wanted to keep it relatively more recent. Demetrius Bell, Nnamdi Asomugha, DeMarco Murray, or Byron Maxwell. Which is the worst Eagles free agent signing? Call or text me on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related off your chest? Want to talk Eagles, Falcons, Phillies? All of that is fair game. Flyers open up training camp next week. Everything is on the table. For the record, too, we have a winner for the 2nd anniversary t-shirt, working on getting all his information and things like that. And then I'll make sure he's good with releasing his name on the podcast. So stay tuned for that. But who is the Eagles' worst free agent signing, I guess, in the past 25 years? Demetrius Bell, Nnamdi Asomugha, DeMarco Murray, or Byron Maxwell? Let me know on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. You can also hit me up on social media, Jimbo_Mont at Twitter and TikTok. on Instagram at Philly Jimbo, Facebook, Instagram, all of that. I'm on it. Be sure to check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences podcast. New football episode drops tomorrow. Baseball on Friday. Doing great things over there. And I'm sure Lewis and Mike are going at it for baseball with the Phillies Mets coming up. Haven't heard. Maybe we ought to put a missing persons report out for Topher. Usually he's good for a couple Twitter comments or a text message to me. I haven't heard from him. So if you can, somebody go check on him to make sure he's all right. Go to Philly Goat, check out their selection, do some shopping, use that promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. And as soon as I'm able to, I will announce the winner of the free t-shirt courtesy of Philly Goat that we gave away in honor of our second anniversary. But answer the question of the day. Who's the worst free agent signing in Eagles history? Specifically the past 25 years, Demetrius Bell, Nnamdi Asomugha, Demarco Murray, or Byron Maxwell. 267-495-8531 will get you in. DeMarco Murray, all of this is in honor of him being today's Philly Sports Villain. On this day in 2004, Phillies beat the Mets 11-9 in 13 innings, set a team record for home runs in a season, set a team record for pitchers used in a game, and them and the Mets tied a Major League Baseball record at the time for total combined pitchers used in a game with 18. Gearing up for that Atlanta series, going to start breaking down what we're looking for and things like that as practice kicks off and continues today as we move into Nick Foles night down at Lincoln Financial Field. Phillies look for the sweep today with Zach Wheeler. Let's chip away at that magic number. It's down to 10 with 7 big games coming up in the next 2 weeks against the Mets. So we're going to everything's going to come to a conclusion here within the next 10 days. So stay tuned for that. Be sure to have a moment of silence today for the victims of 9/11. Again, I apologize if you expected more out of me for that. It's still one of those things 24 years later. It's still very raw emotion and just very somber. But I have my ray of sunshine. Happy birthday to my son Thatcher. 9 years. Hard to believe, Harry. Hard to believe. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for September 11th, 2024. My name is Jim Montgomery. Have a happy hump day. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.